Welcome everyone to today's webinar. We do a couple of webinars a month. Some of them are overviews for people that are either very new to ClubExpress or considering ClubExpress as an association management solution. We do version announcements. We do webinars about particular functions, whether they be the document module or blogging or emailing and things like that. And we recently started doing a series of role-based webinars. So ClubExpress for membership directors, ClubExpress for communications directors, ClubExpress for treasurers, because it's not about one particular module, it may be about the suite of things that you would deal with when you're in that role. And people move in and out of roles all the time. Well, today we're doing one on ClubExpress for Webmasters. But before we get into that, let's take care of a little bit of housekeeping. All the phones and microphones are muted, so if you have questions, you should ask them into the chat window. And we will revisit the chat window at the end of Samantha's demonstration to see if there are any outstanding questions. And this is particularly useful for those people that are watching this as a recording. And speaking of recordings, all of the recordings are available if you go to clubexpress.com and click on the Cool Stuff link at the top of the page, and then click on the Webinars tab. You will see the schedule of upcoming webinars. At the bottom, there's a list of the recorded webinars. And above the Webinars tab is a Video Tutorials tab. And if you click on that, you'll see the list of the tutorials. And the tutorials are shorter and very targeted towards specific features. All of our videos are actually stored on YouTube. So when you're looking at a YouTube video, you can click on the subscribe button and optionally on the notify bell so you can be notified when there's new content. And finally, if you're using ClubExpress, and particularly if ClubExpress is working really well for you, we'd appreciate it if you go to clubexpress.com/reviews, click on one of these review websites, and leave a review so that other people that are evaluating an association management solution can have the benefit of your experience. So I'm going to stop sharing, and Samantha, would you pick up at this slide?
Yes, I will. Thank you everyone for taking the time to join me today. As Alan mentioned, we have a sort of running series where we are focusing not on a single module or a single function, but the big picture. So you can see how everything works together. There's a lot of overlap in a lot of the different modules and databases that you might touch, and there might even be overlap between your job as a webmaster and maybe someone else's job as a communications director. So we like to kind of allow you to take a step back and see the forest and not get so focused on the one tree that you might be looking at. So webmasters are inherently responsible for a lot of different things across a website. You're responsible for not just the user interface, including the layout, the web pages that you create, the photos that might be used across your site, ensuring that the branding of your website is consistent with the branding of your organization, but you're also responsible for how your website functions. How easy is it for your members and non-members to get around your website? How easy is it for them to find documents and photos? And do you have any idea what's going on the back end? Who has access to different portions of your website? Is your website successfully pulling people in? All of these things that go into the job of a webmaster, we have tools to help you with. So we're going to go over those things today. We've separated them into two categories. We'll talk about the user interface tools that you can use to make your website look really great. And we'll also talk about the ways that you make sure your website functions really well. Let's start with what we're going to demo today as far as user interface. We're going to talk about the site editor toolbar, which if you have already set up your website and you are sort of in the thick of it, you probably have already given the site editor toolbar a visit. If there are some of you on this call today who are just getting started, this is going to be new information for you. And it's going to give you a little bit of an overview of how exactly you set up the look and feel of your site. We'll talk about photos, web graphics, and photo albums. So how you're organizing all of the visual things that go on your website, custom pages in your homepage, mobile pages, and we'll also talk about common content. I've already logged into the Northwest Balloon Club as Martin Smith. So Martin Smith is an administrator. So he has access to the back end of the website. So of course, we're going to spend a lot of time in our control panel today and mainly in the website tab. So again, if your website's already been set up, a lot of this might seem like a little bit of a review for you, but it's not just about getting your site set up. It's about what happens if you need to make changes to your site. Our implementation engineers may have got your website going for you, but you're responsible for maintaining your website, making those updates on your own, and making sure that everyone who's visiting your website is getting the most up-to-date information about your organization. So let's start with that site editor toolbar. It's a really fantastic tool that allows you to make a lot of really great changes on your website. And to access the site editor toolbar, I'm in the website tab, all the way at the bottom in the setup section. I'm going to pop into website look and feel. So the first thing that you'll notice is that you have sort of a sample page that you're looking at here. And on the right-hand side, we have our site editor toolbar. Now, this toolbar is going to hover over wherever you are on your site. If you exit this page and you still see this toolbar, that's because you're technically still working with the toolbar in edit mode. A lot of people make the mistake of getting to this page and exiting out without doing anything, and then they notice that this toolbar follows them wherever they go. Don't panic. Just hit revert, and it's going to just exit out of the mode of editing your website. Now, the good news is that this page that you're seeing that's sort of a sample of your website, this is actually a preview. So as you make changes using the site editor toolbar, and we'll talk about the toolbar in a moment, you'll see them update live on this preview page. So you can get an idea of what everything's going to look like before you actually apply those changes. One of the things to note, especially if you're getting set up for the first time, is that the first thing that you're going to do is set up a template. Now, we have a lot of different styles of templates that you can choose from. We have them categorized, and you can even preview them on this page alone without making the change to your website. So when you're looking through previews and you're deciding which one you want, you should also know that the template that you choose is going to affect the layout. So let's take a look at those templates one more time. For example, in responsive, we have a couple of different options. For example, we have a side menu. Second, we have a top level menu. There are different ways that you can start building your website. And also note that just because those templates include different color schemes, different menu styles, different photos at the top of the site, all of that is customizable by you. You don't have to worry about, I don't have a fancy dog kennel club. No worries. You can make those changes using the rest of the tools within the site editor toolbar. And like I said, once you set up a template, that actually determines your layout. Now, your layout, as you can see on the left-hand side, is just where all of those elements on your website are going to sit. So if you want a menu across the top, menu on the left-hand side, where your content box is going to sit, and we'll talk about what a content box is and how you can use it. But just keeping in mind that as you select your template, your layout options are going to change for you. So play around with templates, layouts until you find one you like. Now, let's say that I've already got a great template in place for Northwest Balloon Club. Let's say I want to see what if I changed the template. I can select a template that's completely different from the one that I have, and you'll see the entire page change for me. I realize I don't want it. All I have to do is select revert, and it goes right back to where I was. We're reverted back to the original. We didn't make any changes to our website. And we'll pop right back into look and feel and take a look at some of the other options here. We can adjust the color scheme of our website. The watermark. Now, the watermark is what sits on your website in front of the background behind the content of your website. So again, these things don't necessarily have to make sense, but that's why we give you this preview sandbox where you can play around with different items you can add to your site before actually making those changes. You can also edit the text styles. Some of these things are a little bit new, so we'll talk about that in a moment, but you have the ability to set any text on your website, whether it's a link, whether it's the body text of your website. You can choose from different font styles that we have, and you can also change the color. One of the things that we just added was the ability to change how instruction text looks. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what the instruction text is on your website, it's usually in a very faded bubble at the very top of the page that just gives you a heads up as to what you might be doing with that page, what that page is used for. Now, your users might also see instruction text on some of the user-facing pages as well. So if you have maybe your demographic needs something like a little bit of a larger font, maybe you're concerned about color blindness and you want to make sure that you're using proper colors across your website, change the way the instruction text looks. You can even decide to not show it at all. So if you don't want that blurb across every single page of your site, you can remove the instruction text, or you can just change the way it looks. Handful of other options that we have here. Menu style. You can also change the menu style that's on your website. And again, any of these menu options, once you select one and hit save, you're going to preview it directly on this page. I know that at the beginning of the call before we got started, we had someone mention that they do a little bit of programming. We do allow you to add in some custom programming for your own website. Now, don't let that deter those of you who don't have any programming experience, because as you're going to see today, you don't really need to have that in order to have a great looking site. So for example, we do have all of these templates and layouts available. You have the ability to change the header of your page. So you can change the banner, you can add in a new logo. But you also have the ability to add in some custom CSS. So if you have any styles that you want to apply to different headings or different lists or even different photos that you want to include on your website, you can include that within custom CSS and reference it throughout custom pages and the homepage of your website. So some of the other things that we have here, let's pop into design. Design, again, is going to give you sort of a pre-packaged set of heading styles that you can use. And again, there are a lot of options here, and it's easy to get lost in each one of these, but give it a shot. Spend 10 or 15 minutes just playing around with the look and feel of your website. You'd be surprised at what you can come up with just by using the tools that we've given you, as opposed to thinking that you might get lost in it because you need to program something on your own.
Just before you leave, there's a question that says, can you try multiple look and feel changes on this page and then click on revert and go back to the original look and feel? And the answer is yes. Nothing gets applied until you actually click on apply. So you can try different templates, you can try different layouts. And if you don't like any of them, you just click on revert. By the way, if anybody is doing this on one of our sample sites, on a demo club sites, you can't apply them because it's hard enough keeping up with changes that people are making to them without actually letting them make big UI changes. One thing that Samantha mentioned is that it's very important to know that the layouts that are available are subsets of the template that has been selected. Mm-hmm. So layout with something with a horizontal menu versus vertical menu is going to be a little different. There's a question that says, is there a difference between actually editing on the website versus in the ClubExpress locations as the option? There, I don't understand what they mean by locations, because you are always editing on your live website. There's no separate site. And the other question is, how can I see the HTML for a page? Well, that's usually done by your browser. Samantha, you want to show that little tip about showing the HTML?
Yes. So, well, unfortunately, you can't see my keyboard, but I don't know if it's the same for every browser, but at least for Chrome, which is what I'm using now, it's the function key in F12. And that brings up I apologize, I don't know what this is called, but it brings up the thing. You can tell I'm not a developer. It brings up the thing that shows the code. So if you are interested in seeing what things look like on the back end of your website, just to see where some of those elements are coming from, your browser usually takes care of that for you.
Yeah. Now, on the other hand, in a custom page, you can put in an advanced text editor or an HTML widget. In the advanced text editor, you can go between design mode and HTML and see the HTML for what you're displaying in that widget. or the HTML widget itself, where you can just put in your own code. Those are helpful, but not for the overall site here. But
Mhm.
the thing that I was mentioning is that if when you're in that source code display in your browser, if you wanted to see what it would look like with a word changed, you can actually go change the word. It won't make a permanent change, but like if you wanted to change the where it said website look and feel, you wanted it to say my site look and feel, you could actually change that and maybe do a screenshot of something that you want to show to your executive board. Yeah, so she just changed it to my look and feel. It's not permanent, but
Mhm.
it's a quick way to do a screenshot. And we do that quite often when we're doing tutorials.
Yes, we do. It's one of
Yeah,
the few
that
things I know how to do.
yeah, that Robert said it's called the Chrome Inspect component, I think.
Let's talk about some of the other items that you might touch on. And again, this section is user interface, and then we're going to move on to functions. So, focusing on the way that your website looks right now, let's talk very quickly about fonts. So, we have a very large library of available fonts. And we do understand that there are organizations out there that have very specific fonts that they use as part of their brand. If you are in need of a font that we do not have, give our support team a call. We work with a lot of clubs, associations to use really specific fonts across their site so that you can make sure that your brand is consistent. So you have several dozen different font types. Now, these font types are going to be available to you in a handful of different places, anywhere where that advanced content editor that Alan mentioned is used. So when you are writing up formatted descriptions for an event in the event calendar, when you're creating custom pages, when you're working on your homepage, all of those items, you can use these fonts. Now, let's talk about one of the burning questions that I get a lot in training, which is photos, web graphics, and photo albums. What's the difference? They all sound the same. They all hold photos. Why do we have three different sections for it? Well, they're essentially, again, places photos can live on your website. They're all located in the website tab. At the very top in admin functions, we have photos. Under website modules, we have photo albums. And at the very bottom in the setup section, we have web graphics. Photos and web graphics are both admin only, and photo albums can be admin only, but they can also be opened up to additions from members. So photo albums are really the only way that you have to allow your members to not only view photo collections that you have on your website, but even allow them to contribute to those photo collections. Photos and web graphics, again, are for admin purposes only. Whenever you're adding photos in any case, you can change their titles, organize and tag them for easy searching, and we'll talk about tags a little bit later. And these photos, again, are used in a lot of different places on your website. They're used in emails, they're used in custom pages, event descriptions, and more. So what's the difference? Let's talk about photos. Photos are stored in multiple resolutions. When you upload a photo to your photo manager, we are going to save three versions or three different sizes of that photo. The full size, a thumbnail size that's going to be used in albums and in previews, and finally a screen size, which is what's going to be used on your web pages. No matter what size of the photo that you upload, that's what happens on our end. And to kind of demonstrate that just a little bit, I'm going to open up one of the photos. And what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to open up this copy image URL link. Now, let me explain why that might be important. If you are creating a custom page and you are using HTML in order to edit that page, you might need the link of the photo as opposed to being able to upload the photo itself. You also just might want to share the photo with someone and don't necessarily want to download a copy and then send it to somebody else. If I open this up, you'll see again, that sort of reiterates that we saved three different sizes of that photo: the thumbnail size, the screen size, the original size, and they're all going to be used in a different way by you. Now, before I talk about some of these other options that you have with your photos here, let's talk about web graphics. We're going to go back into the control panel and visit web graphics. Web graphics are stored only as the size they're uploaded. So you likely want to reserve that space for things like logos, banners, things that are used across your site that really don't change that much. Now, the size of your images may not seem incredibly important because you know that images generally get resized to fit web pages, but one of the main things to consider, especially now, is that a lot of people visiting your website are probably visiting your website from their phone. And the larger the image that you place on any custom page, your homepage, anything like that, it's going to take longer for them to download it to their phone, especially if they have terrible service or even at home, right? Where they might be living way out in the middle of nowhere and not have a great internet connection. So when you are uploading a photo to the web graphics manager and it's maintaining its original size, that might be a very large file or photo to have someone download just to view a page. And then also consider that you're probably not adding just one photo to a page, you're adding multiple photos to a page. So consider reevaluating where you've stored your images, using the photo library for photos and using web graphics for just that, graphics that will appear on your site, logos, banners, things like that.
Samantha, we have a question. It's along what you're talking about. It says, can you speak to photo best practices to upload photos so that they are clear and crisp? There's a couple of things to consider. And as Samantha mentioned, a photo typically gets 3 images: the original resolution, a thing called screen size, and a thumbnail. Unless the original resolution is no bigger than the screen size. Did you specify the screen size in photos?
I did not.
They go into Photo Album Manager. So when you're uploading photos, there should be photo album options. One of those things at the bottom, I think, is the photo size for the maximum photo size. Now, normally it's set to 640 pixels. It really should be 1024. So that's as you're stepping through your photo albums, that's the size picture you'll see. And then there's a small one also being made. So I recommend, by all means, change the max photo size for the screen size to 1024 instead of 640. That'll go a long way. But as Samantha just said, try not to make pictures bigger than you need. Things that are going on your website as web graphics should really be stored at the correct size for your display. And there's a question that says, do you store photos in the photo album or in the document library? Personally, I always store them in the photo albums, but you could store them in the document, but then you don't have an easy preview. So that's sort of where we are. By the way, as we mentioned before, we have tutorials and webinars on photos. And in fact, in the both photos and the web graphics, you'll see next to each photo, there's an icon for editing. So it'll let you do some rudimentary editing, including cropping and resizing and saving to a new image. So if you want to resize it down and make a smaller version or a crop version, you can do that too. In the image editor in Photos, it'll let you make multiple versions of copies. In WebGraphic, I believe it only lets you make one additional version. There's a webinar. In fact, I spent an entire hour talking about how to use this tool. Someone says the instructions that below photo size say by default the screen size resolution have a maximum size of 450. Change it to 1024. And right now there's a hard-coded 450 in forum photos, which we're trying to get changed. Again, let's not get too much into the weeds other than saying these are things you should look at when deciding what size and where to put photographs.
And the final thing that I wanted to sort of mention as far as photos and web graphics is accessibility. So on our help system, one of the things that I took the time to do was to make sure that all of the images and the screenshots in the help system had alt text. It was a really large project, but it was something that I really wanted to get done. And you have the ability to add information regarding your photos just to make that a little bit easier for people visiting your website. Especially when you're uploading things, try to add in as much information as you can, as opposed to, quickly adding some photos to your website and just, getting down to business. Organization on the back end give you the tools to make your job a little bit easier. So we really try to get you to use them. So let's talk about custom pages and the home page. We have a lot of tutorials on custom pages, and editing your home pages. So again, we're not going to get too far into the weeds, but we're basically just going to give you a very short tour of what it means to build and edit a custom page. Right now, I'm in the custom page manager. Your home page has its own section where you're editing that particular page, but your homepage is essentially just a giant custom page. They both use the page builder. And again, we have a lot of content on our help system and our YouTube channel on how to use the page builder, including how to edit pages that were created prior to the use of the page builder. So if you've been with us for even 6 months to a year, you might be familiar with the advanced content editor and using that in order to build your custom pages. But recently, we rolled out the page builder, which is this really wonderful tool that allows you to create separate sections of every page, edit the visibility of different sections. So you can have one page that's visible to everyone, but different elements of that page might be visible to members only or the public only. And we also added a lot of different options. Alan mentioned that you have the ability to copy and paste content from one cell into another. So it makes editing pages that much easier. You also have the ability to copy and paste from one page to another. So we're really trying to make your job really easy. A lot of these elements you can just drag and drop into the actual page. So getting familiar with some of those tools, they're really easy to use. And we have a lot of help documentation to help you get through that. There are many different ways that you can use widgets and content to combine and present content to your users, including those photos, media, any events, using our widgets and leveraging other content on your site to put that on your homepage or a custom page. I mentioned visibility settings. Again, you can edit the visibility of not just an entire page, but sections of a page. And one of the other items that we added with the use of the page builder was our version manager. You now have versioning available to you as part of your page builder option. So you can create multiple versions of a page, even your home page. And it's not necessarily versions that might be super different from one another. You might have an old version that you just want to make a couple of changes to. Every time you save changes, it creates a new version. And they might be, as you can see here, different versions that are being used for approval by your board. So if you have someone who maybe is helping you out with a few custom pages, maybe it's not even you, they can save several different versions of it, and you can pop in as an admin, take a look at the different versions, preview them, and approve one for use. Speaking of previewing, one of the things that I love the most about the page builder is our preview function. This is a new function that we did not have before. You had the ability to preview your page before, but we now have the ability to preview the page in several different views and based on who we are. So if I'm looking at a page in admin view on a desktop, it might look different than if I'm taking a look at the member view of that page. And even more different if I'm looking at the member view from a phone. So you can see that when we're going through different items on our website, they stack as opposed to going straight across in a row like that. So considering how your content might be laid out on a mobile page is really important. And that brings us to our next item, which would be mobile versions. Every single page on your website, including your modules, is going to be mobile friendly. So think about your graphic sizes. Think about how your content is going to be displayed. So again, if we, take a look at a page that has several rows of content, and then we switch to our mobile preview, you'll notice that every one of those items gets stacked. So, really take a look at those previews before you throw that page up on your website. And, does that make sense? Is that the way that you want to present information to your members or your non-members? Check the previews before adding those pages to your menu. And to move out of custom pages, while we're still talking about mobile, we're going to pop right back into the control panel. And at the very bottom, under the setup section, mobile setup. Now, this is something that not a lot of people realize, but you can have a separate header and footer and homepage for your mobile site. So we've been talking about, download speeds and graphic sizes, and it's not even about the size. It could just be maybe your header that you have on your desktop website. Great header, fabulous header, a little big for mobile, a little much for mobile. Maybe you just want a really clean logo at the top of your website when someone visits that from a phone or tablet. So you have the ability to take a look at those items, really customize the experience that your members and even the public are having when they visit your website. Yes, it takes time, but the end result, of course, is going to be more traffic to your site. Users are going to be a lot happier when they visit it, and they're going to use it more if it's that much easier and that much more pleasant for them.
Now, one thing to consider about the mobile website setup, this used to be a very important module. It's actually not used that much these days, except for things like what Samantha is mentioning about having very restricted information, maybe some much smaller graphics. All of the pages are mobile responsive to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And this was particularly useful before the mobile responsive layouts were introduced, where we had everything was in tables, and they didn't display particularly well. But here, particularly if you have your members are using mobile phones with limited data plans, maybe you want to not show your normal homepage. Maybe you want to have a separate limited homepage or something that highlights particular information. Again, we do have a tutorial on this, but don't rush out to use this to say, oh, I need a mobile page.
Mm-hmm.
Use it if a mobile page instead of your normal homepage is good for you.
Mm-hmm. And the last item that I wanted to touch on as far as user interface would be common content. Common content on a website is basically a chunk of content that you decide you want displayed on all pages of your website in a specific spot. Your website menu is a really good example of that. If you're not really familiar with the term common content, you select the spot you want your menu to live, and whether that's horizontally across the top, like you see here, or on the side vertically, in either case, on every single page of your website, the menu appears in the same spot no matter what. So common content can be used to show important announcements to your members or to your non-members. If you have enabled banner advertising on your website, which is an extra cost module that we offer, you can use the common content section to house those ads and display them on your website wherever you decide. Now, it's important to note that the common content on your website is also going to be based on your layout. So you remember that when we were taking a look at that site editor toolbar and we looked at those layout options, the common content box was a bright yellow box. And depending on the layout that you've selected, that content has no choice but to only sit in certain spots on your website. Now, let's take a look at some of the items that we have here. So let's say that I want to add a little announcement below my menu. All I have to do is select the little magic wand. We're taking a look at, again, this is our advanced content editor here. You can add a really quick message to your members. Maybe you are living in an area that is experiencing a lot of crazy weather and you're having to cancel a lot of events. Or maybe you just want to let your members know that you are deploying some new updates to your site and they might see a new layout or new menu options and you want to call their attention to that. Leverage common content. It's a great way to let your members know something that either is really, really important and they need to see it right away, or something that's not important enough to send in an email. Like, hey, check out our site. We've adjusted our menu. You might notice some changes. Give us your feedback. So the next section, and I do know that we're getting a little close to time, so I'll try and sort of move this along here. Next, we're going to talk about those functions. We'll talk about modules and how you as a webmaster might be responsible for some of the items on your website and how they're presented to your users. Menus. We'll talk about tags and why they're important. Quick links. We'll talk a little bit about SSL certificates and how they work on your website, how you might obtain one. And then we'll talk about your website options and reports. So let's go back into Demo Club here and let's talk about modules. We're going to go back into the control panel. We recently redesigned our control panel, so we do have information and tutorials on how to work with the control panel. But noting that when you are taking a look at modules on your website, and you're configuring those modules, you have the ability to select three separate names for that module, depending on where you're looking. The function name is what that module is going to have as a title within the control panel. That's admin only. The menu text, that's what displays in the menu when you add that module to the menu. So you might want your events module to say calendar. You might want it to say upcoming events. You might want it to say things to do. And then your browser title. Your browser title is what is going to appear in the top left-hand corner of whatever browser you happen to be using. I'm using Chrome right now. So my browser title is just sitting up in this tab. And just noting that you have the ability, again, to make the experience for your users really seamless, making sure that if you have something enabled on your site, like FAQ Tech Library, and you leave that particular module labeled as FAQ Tech Library when you add it to a menu, your members may not know what that is. Maybe you want to relabel that. So let's talk about menus. Another one of the burning questions that I get in training is, how do I add something to my menu? How do I change my menu? How do I change some of the submenus? Or not everyone's really familiar with what a submenu is, so some people call them tabs. But it's just important to note that it's one of the easiest things that you can do on your website. And it's something that a lot of people forget to do, especially after they enable a new module or they create a new custom page and they wonder why it's not appearing on their site or why people are having trouble accessing it. Don't forget to add it to your menu. And let's talk about the different menus that we have. We have a full menu that sits at the very top of your website that is updated using menus. And then we also have submenus, which are, again, these just little drop-down sections that allow you to group items together, whether it's based on this is what members have access to, or maybe you have an About Us submenu where your contact information is housed. Maybe you have your committee's information displayed there as well. It's generally a best practice to have no more than maybe 7 items on your full menu. You'll notice here that we have a lot of options in our submenu because otherwise our menu is just going to wrap to 2 lines. You never want it to wrap to the second line. And remembering that your users aren't going to be able to find something if it's not on your menu. Now, you have 2 menus that are available, your member menu and your public menu. Within our member menu, you'll see that we have that submenu that we've created. The submenu is added as one item to your full menu. So our member menu submenu, that's where we're going to add all of those individual items that appear in that drop-down menu. And then the last section of this page, external links. External links allow you to link to sister organizations, maybe link to brands that you recommend to your club members, sponsors of your organization. You can create an external link, again, editing that menu text, adding in the link address, and add those external links either to your full menu or to a submenu. Maybe you have a submenu that is just sponsored brands or favorite brands, and allow your users to navigate directly to that particular item right from your own menu.
Samantha, I looked away a little bit. Did you mention that you can have menus that are specific to particular member type?
I did not, but yes, you can have menus specific to member types. So we, on this particular website, have one member menu. But if you have tiered membership, maybe you have a bronze, a silver, and a gold member, maybe your gold members get access to a lot of extra content that your bronze members do not. Maybe your gold members have access to your forums, but the rest of your members don't. So when you're creating a menu, you have the ability to say, okay, on my silver menu, we're not going to have forums, but on my gold menu, we will. And when you pair that menu with the member type, that allows you to, create a completely different experience for those members. And you tell our system, this member type has access to this menu. So this is kind of where that hand-in-hand functionality comes with. So you might not really be responsible for member types and what goes into a membership or any of that side of your organization, but your job kind of affects their job. So communicate with your membership director and see if that's something that they might be interested in. Really merge your two jobs together because really that's what your website is. Your website brings everything all into one place. You don't have to siphon yourself off. They don't have to siphon themselves off because you're working in two different applications. It all talks to each other.
There are a couple of comments. One says that they're using an external link to add a link to a specific document, in our case, a printable brochure or current classes. Another very common use for that is that the event calendar can be filtered to show only particular types of events or show everything except for a particular category of event or for particular sub-organizations. And once you get the URL for that, then what you do is you add it as an external link and then you can put it on your menu. That's a very useful tool.
So let's talk about tags. In my opinion, not enough people use them. I love them. They're items that are used to attach keywords to or phrases to photos, blogs, news articles, documents. They can help you as an admin organize items on the back end. And if you don't already know it, your users can search through your document library, your photos, your blogs, your news articles based on tags that you've assigned to those items. Now, a lot of those modules will also allow you to add individual tags, but you can create a master list of tags that not only you can reference when you are uploading those things to your website, but any of your coordinators, any of your helpers, your secretaries, your volunteers, they can access that list of tags as well so that you can have a consistent set across your site. And if you're not familiar with what a tag is or why it might be useful, let's say that you host a recipe contest every year and submissions are stored in your document library. The winner of the contest submits a recipe for something like black bean burgers. And your members can search through the title, which is probably going to be the name of the recipe. But what if your members want to look through your documents for vegetarian recipes or dinner recipes or freezer-friendly recipes? Whenever you visit a site and you're able to sort of filter and narrow your search down, those are tags that you're using to filter that search. So again, it may not seem like your website can get that fancy, but it really can if you put that little smidgen of effort into it. And quick links. Quick links are a really wonderful way to clean up the links that you use to share items on your website. So when you are creating a custom page, when you're working with a module, one of the things that you're going to see everywhere is quick link text. You can think of that as sort of a URL shortener or cleaner. So for example, if I take a look at my event calendar and I pop into events, even from the member's perspective, I don't know if you can see the full URL, but it looks a little bit ugly. Maybe you want to send something out to your members or you want to throw something on your Facebook page. Visit myclub.org/events. You can assign those custom links right from the control panel. So when you are creating a custom link, quick link text, all you have to do is type in what you want that last part of your link to be. And it's essentially going to be the first section of your URL / whatever you put in your quick link text. You can save those items. You can share those links. You can even use those links within emails, within really anywhere across your site.
This also works for individual documents and web pages and things like
Mm-hmm.
that, not just the modules.
Mm-hmm. And SSL certificates. Now, we don't really have a spot on our website for this, but our ClubExpress website has a lot of information on SSL certificates. And for those of you who aren't really familiar with what it means, essentially every single one of your websites is secure. In my address bar, you can see I have this little padlock here indicating that my website's secure. You have two options to manage the certificate on your website. The first is do nothing. And everyone loves doing nothing. If you do nothing, your website is going to use the ClubExpress SSL certificate, which means that your website's safe, your website's secure. And you'll have that clubexpress.com part of your URL. A lot of people choose to purchase their own SSL certificate for their site so that they can use their own domain and get rid of that Club Express portion of their domain. If you would like to purchase an SSL certificate of your own to use on your website, we have a lot of information about that on clubexpress.com, different pricing. You can purchase a certificate for a year, for 2 years, for 3, for 4, and we take care of everything on the back end for you. So you just give our support team a call, let them know that that's something that you'd like to do. We handle everything. We load it to the back end of your site when it's ready to expire and it's time to renew that certificate. If you purchase multiple years, we do that for you. So again, we have a lot of information on our website. If that's something that you're interested in or you have more questions, just give our website a visit and call our customer support team. They're more than happy to walk through those options with you. And one of the last items would be website options. And luckily, it's a short page. So at the very top, you have a lot of general items that you can add to your site. The first one, add me to your mailing list. That option is only going to be available to visitors to your site who have not logged in. So if you are a member of the site, you don't have the option to add yourself to the mailing list, but that's how you build up your non-member database. Adding that link to your site allows it to, I believe it appears at the top left-hand corner. Right now I have that control panel link, but remember that add me to your mailing list link is only going to be available for your non-members. It also uses mailing list categories. So if you're interested in talking about mailing list categories a little bit more, we do have a tutorial on our website. And that might be, again, another opportunity where you're potentially working with someone else in your organization, likely your communications director. It allows them to, pick and choose better groups of people that they can target with their emailing campaigns. Now, each of these options, again, are available to you. You don't have to enable them all. Tell a friend allows your members to send a sort of invite link to others to invite them to join that organization. How did you hear about us? Directory listings. Again, all of this information is based on what you want that experience to be like for your members and for your non-members. Whether or not you want your members to be bugged when they have a pending payment, whether or not you want them to be bugged when they need to renew, anything like that. And if we scroll down a little bit, we see our search engine optimization feature. You have the ability, of course, to add in keywords to boost your visibility within search engines. And you also have the option to integrate Google Analytics. If you are using Google Analytics, we give you the option to add that information to your website so you can track metrics on your own. There are a lot of really great tutorials out there to help you get started. I use Google Analytics on the help system. I'm not really that great at it, but I spent a lot of time watching YouTube videos, going through those tutorials, and now it's pretty fun for me, and I'm actually pretty decent at it. But we do get, if it's a little bit intimidating for you, especially if you are already managing a lot of other things on your website. So we've given you one extra option that you can use to manage that part of your website and to really get a feel for what's going on the back end. And so our last stop today is going to be the reports section of the website tab. The first section, website traffic, there are reports that you can view that show you who's logged into your website and who hasn't. So if your website's just launching and you have sent out that welcome email to your members, but you're still not getting a lot of traction, you can see who of your members have logged in and who hasn't. You can see how much time people are spending on individual pages of your website, how much time they're spending on your website in general. You can get a really good feel of how successful your site is, when you've made changes based on those reports that are available to you. We also have reports that allow you to see how successful that tell a friend feature is for you, to let you see who has told their friends, and of those friends, who's actually signed up with your organization. And the last report is going to be your website security report. We mentioned website access and security in almost every one of our webinars because it's so important and it touches every role in your organization. You as a webmaster are likely an administrator of your site, so you might be aware that you have different levels of security and access on your site, administrators, coordinators. If you're ever concerned of, who has access to what on your site, give that website security report a quick run just to see what's going on. Maybe you have a couple of volunteers that still have access to the back end of your emailing module that are maybe no longer volunteering with your organization. I believe I've exhausted the things that I need to say today, but I suspect that there might be questions.
See, some people are saying, excellent presentation, very good, and thanks for the webinar. And it says, we'll check out the tutorials and videos. These are really important. The tutorials and the videos and the recordings of other webinars are really great to help kickstart your learning if you're new to it, or to find the little nuggets that are there. You say, oh, I never noticed this, say about the event calendar, that I could create a calendar that only shows specific types of events. Oh, the Cece says, nice webinar, like a buffet. So many goodies. So now she says, I'm going to go over and see what I missed. We've run up against the clock. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and we will see you in the next webinar.
Bye, everyone.